How do you tackle such challenging systems such as the ragdoll mechanics and collision?
Yeah, we talked about that randomness, and sometimes it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because it gives you that scale that we talked about, where you get a lot of range in what you're doing. The player can solve things in a lot of variety in a lot of different ways. But there is some point where we see this a lot in gang beasts. Now they lean into this. It's because there is no precision to the things that the player is required or asked to do. It's leaning into the physics as randomness in that scenario. You could pick up someone, and where they land when you throw them doesn't matter too much because a lot of the areas are quite large anyway. If you throw them roughly in that direction, you'll throw them into the spike, the spikes, or if you throw them into the lava. And so it really leans into the randomness by giving some forgiveness in some of those dead zones. But for us, we have a lot of precision. Like we've really leaned in on combat, and we looked at Souls-like experiences for the combat dynamics. We have parry, we have block, we have all of these things. When we look at that, we need some level of precision to the randomness, right? So now there's like conundrums here because not only do we need to have some level of predictability to the physics, but then now we have to send that over a network, right? Being a multiplayer game. When we look at trying to make things a bit more accurate, we can use estimations, right? So just to give you an idea or an example of something, let's just think of this concept of magnets, right? We could have, let's say, an invisible magnet that you might not see in the game, and that magnet can draw something with physics towards it, right? As if it was made out of metal or something. And this is a concept that you can put into the game. You can create like a magnet. No players will see this, right? This is just for the way that we can control physics. But we might have a magnet placed somewhere, and then when someone gets thrown, they will get basically sucked towards this magnet and give you some level of precision. Because if you were aiming towards the execution point, we have a magnet at the execution point that you don't really see. You just see the execution point. If you roughly throw someone towards it, if you're close enough, it'll just kind of move them, just kind of push them towards it so that you hit more often than not, right? So there are a lot of little things that we do to kind of assist the physics to make it a little bit more predictable, a bit more precise, so that when players are now thinking about how do I counter a specific move, they can rely on a physics maneuver in order to do that, and not be like, hey, I'm going to go for this play, and then the physics was off by like little tiny bits, and now you're just screwed, right? You just lost that match or that round. That was a big challenge, making things more precise. And then over a network, we've got up to 32 players in a single tournament. We've got up to 12 in a single map, and all those 12 players need to see all the physics, all the chemistry, right? You burn a tree down, it burns down for everyone, right? All of this stuff needs to be sent over a network. And so we're working diligently to make sure that the responsiveness is there. We're looking at the ping and the lag and making sure that those things are as low as possible. We're testing on servers that are local. We're testing on servers that are overseas to try and make sure we get an average of what the ping could possibly be. And it's not something that happens overnight, unfortunately. It is trial and error and trying things and optimizing, then doing it again, much like the level design process. And but we're doing it in that skyscraper method that I mentioned in the last episode. We're doing it layer at a time. We build it, it works, we balance it. I mentioned about all the art and all of that stuff. Then the last bit of that too now is like putting it over a network. And then we have to do the whole testing cycle iteration again to make sure it also now works over a network, And so, yeah, we're working really hard to try and get a version of this to people. And even if it's not fully complete and doesn't have a million maps or anything like that, we want to give you something that you can try out so that we can get feedback early on these things too, right? Because we've done a lot already, and we want to make sure we get it to people as early as possible. We don't want to put out something that we're not happy with or it's not finished yet. And so a lot of this is going to be working hard to make sure the latency is as low as possible, and then putting it to the test in a real environment, right? And getting feedback from actual players. So yeah, we're doing work on it, but it doesn't end until we get into people's hands.